Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever and whenever you are joining today's on demand pre recorded webinar featuring the National Parks by Rail. Folks, so excited to have you here today. Whenever you are viewing today's pre recorded on demand webinar, my name is Jim Marini and will proudly be your host here today. And if you look in the top right hand corner of your screen, folks, you may just see some iconic awesome logo. And what does that say? The National Park Service. And folks, it truly gives me great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker for today, who's going to join us throughout today's pre recorded on demand webinar. So, with that in mind, let me take a minute to introduce you to my good friend and someone that I'm proud to say I've had the pleasure of doing many of these online pre recorded webinars with over the years, and that is Donald Leadbetter, otherwise known as Donnie. So, Donnie, thank you for joining us here today.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you for that introduction. It's great to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I love national parks. What can I say? I've worked for the National Park Service for almost 14 years now. And before
Wow.
that, I was a tour guide myself. I led tours and trips into national parks. I worked on cruise ships. I was a camping tour guide, worked in some lodges. So this is something I've got some experience with. Love our national parks. Always happy to talk about them. It's exciting to be here, and I look forward to profiling some of these great places with you.
Well, thank you so much, Donnie. And by the way, that makes two of us. Lots of travel, tourism, and hospitality in our background. And again, thank you so much for being our guest speaker here today. And folks, you will not be disappointed when you hear more from Donnie in just a little bit. But to get things kicked off, certainly for those of you who may not be as familiar with Amtrak vacations, if you look at the picture right here on your screen, folks, we like to say we connect the dots. We not only take care of your train reservations and your rail tickets to get you from point A to point B or point C, especially to some of these fantastic national parks. But if you look at this picture right on your screen, it's not only just trains, again, booking the different types of trains for you and your friends and family, but also the different seating and sleeping accommodations, which we'll talk about later as well. Did you know we can also book 3, 4, and 5-star hotels with Amtrak vacations, sightseeing tours? And I know Donnie will mention some of the great different sites that are available throughout some of these national parks that he recommends. Also, transfers to be able to bring you from the airport to the hotel or hotel back to the airport or lodge, you name it, and so much more. Truly a one stop shop when it comes to trains, hotels, sightseeing, transfers, and more. And what is our most popular region in the United States? Well, you are looking at it, folks. It is the national parks. I'm proud to say, although Donnie, you have me beat with 14 years at the National Park Service, I just celebrated my 11-year anniversary with Amtrak Vacations. By the way, I hope you like my logo shirt, everyone, for those of you joined Donnie and I. But if you look at this map of the United States, what national parks can I visit by train? Really, the question is, what national parks can I not visit by train? Because with Amtrak Vacations, we do travel to most of them throughout the United States. And what Donnie and I is, we're going to highlight the most popular ones today, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. But did you know you can also view some of these different national parks right on our website, folks, whether it's Glacier National Park, Grand Canyon, the Grand Tetons, Yellowstone, Yosemite, and so much more. And you can search by the number of days, by the different national parks, by multiple national parks. So if you're looking to visit 2 or 3 in one trip, maybe it's on your bucket list or your wish list. And here's what I always say too, and I know Donnie, I'm sure can attest to this and certainly relate to this as well. There's so many great sights to see around the world, but folks, there's so many great national parks right in our own backyard. So if that is on your wish list, maybe some of you may want to travel with your friends and family, or maybe your children or grandchildren. Amtrak Vacations has you covered. Now, when you do search by national parks on our website, folks, we make it super easy. All right. If you look in the big red circle down in the bottom left-hand corner, as I mentioned, you can search by destination. What type of vacation are you looking for? Are you looking for a getaway trip? Are you looking for a 1 to 2 week long trip? Are you looking for the most popular? But in the bottom of the very bottom of this slide, in the little red round circle, you're viewing page one of 15 different pages. But did you know with Amtrak Vacations, folks, we have almost 200 different national parks itineraries. Now, Donnie, I know you're going to laugh when I say this. We're not going to go through every national park today. Again, we're going to just feature the top 5 to 7 national parks today between Donnie and I that are trending the most popular for this year in 2025 as well as into 2026. But for all the folks joining Donnie and I today, you know yourselves the best. If you, your friends and family, if you don't feel like driving or you don't like to fly or don't feel like flying, did you know you can start and or end at any local Amtrak train station in the United States? Believe it or not, everyone, there's over 500 different train stations in the United States that you can start and or end at. And here's a better view of the Amtrak Vacations map. And if you look closely at the map, folks, the red lines that you see, well, those are all the different Amtrak trains in the United States. And something interesting to share with all of you, certainly if any of you have ever viewed any of our pre-recorded previous webinars and on-demand online presentations, all right, not only is there over 500 train stations in the United States, but the trains actually travel to 46 out of the 48 states within the continental USA, the lower 48. In fact, the only two states the trains do not physically travel through are the states of South Dakota and Wyoming. But all those red lines represent all the different trains in the United States. And a little fun trivia for all of you. Do you know last year, over 33 million people traveled on board Amtrak? So if Amtrak was an airline, it would actually be the sixth largest airline in the United States. And if you look even closer in between the red lines, folks, you'll see these light green, light blue lines. And those are what we call our motor coach throughway service. Basically, motor coach buses, shuttles that connect you and your friends and family to some of those iconic national parks, some of them which Donnie will highlight today, where the trains may not physically go to, but Amtrak Vacations, we still include within our packages for you and your friends and family to still visit those iconic national parks. Now, for those of you that have not had the pleasure of traveling on board with Amtrak Vacations, or maybe this is your second, third, fifth or so time you're looking to travel by train, the things you can expect starting from the top, well, comfortable seating. I'm going to give you a big highlight right now, folks. 2 extra large seats on one side, 2 extra large seats on the other. So what does that mean? There are no middle seats. All right. So keep that in mind. That's a big highlight. Also, freedom to move around. Unlike being in your car or being on a motor coach bus or certainly on an airplane where it's not as common, people are getting up, walking around. We want you to do that on board the train. We want you to go sit in the observation car, which truly is really where you want to be, especially to these national parks, because it brings me to my third point. Scenic views all the way around. And Donnie, I don't know if I ever mentioned this to you, but being here 11 years, one of my favorite sayings in every presentation I do is the clouds look the same anywhere we fly in the world. Doesn't matter if it's in Australia, Asia, New Zealand, Europe, you name it, the clouds look the same, but not when you travel by train, especially traveling to some of these magnificent national parks, which Johnny's going to talk more about in a little bit. Also, did you know flexible baggage allowance? You're allowed 2 pieces of luggage, folks, per person, up to 50 pounds per luggage, and 2 carry-on bags. So certainly flexible, unlike, again, maybe airlines where you might get charged for your first or second piece of luggage. Also, again, unique sightseeing. So many times you're going to travel through some of the quaint areas, the little downtowns, the rural areas, the countryside, the cities. It's so unique as you travel from one great destination to another. And the last point is a curated selection of hotels. Now, what you'll see today when Donnie highlights some of the different national parks is you can stay in some of these iconic lodges. And that's the beauty with Amtrak Vacations. This is probably one of our biggest benefits traveling to the national parks, folks. We can get space inside these hard to get space lodges most of the time. All right. Some of these lodges, as I'm sure even Donnie is aware, and many of you joining us here today, they can book sometimes 1 to 2 years in advance. But with Amtrak Vacations, we're fortunate by having space available in most of those lodges. So the first area that we're going to move into is the beautiful kind of Pacific Northwest, in particular, Glacier National Park. And before I pass it over to Donnie, I did want to mention the train that any of you that has Glacier National Park on your wish list, the train you would travel on, it is known as the Empire Builder, right there as you see on the top of your screen. This is the train that can either start or end in the great city of Chicago, start or end in St. Paul, Minneapolis, but it travels to Spokane as well as either ending or starting in Portland or Seattle. So any of these trains, folks, you can either go east to west or west to east. This is our number one most popular overnight long distance train in all of the United States. And what's great is, in particular with this national park, folks, the train takes you to the park's doorstep. So to give you a little better idea, to give you a little bit of a tease before I pass it over to my good friend Donnie, here's a short little video that I hope you enjoy watching on the Empire Builder.
Hey there! Come along with me and my husband as we take a trip to Glacier National Park aboard Amtrak's Empire Builder train. We started bright and early at Seattle's King Street Station. It's cool to finally see the historic clock tower up close. And the newly renovated interior is beautiful. Looks like it's time to head on board. And here's our train that'll take us all the way to Montana. We dropped off gear in our roomette and explored the train for a while before settling into the dining car to enjoy the views. Perfect spot to pass some time. Back to our roomette. The use of space is really clever. During the day, you get comfy seats, but they turn into a bed. There's even a fold-out table and plugs to charge our phones. You also have a dedicated attendant. This really is an amazing way to travel. The scenery is always changing, and you've got the time to actually appreciate it. The wilderness out here is absolutely breathtaking. Meals were included with the room, just book a time in the dining car. Food was great. There was even dessert. After eating, back to the roomette. And voila, beds. Time to unwind. Good night. We got up early the next day to catch the sunrise in the Sightseer Lounge. The landscapes were straight out of a movie. Back to our room to pack our stuff and finalize hiking plans. Almost there. It was a little sad to say goodbye to the train, but the excitement and mountain air made it easier. Thanks for joining us on our adventure. It's definitely one we'll never forget.
I love that video, folks. But what I love even more is getting an opportunity right now to introduce Donnie to take you through this fantastic national park. So with that in mind, Donnie, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks so much. I appreciate that. Well, this is exciting to talk about. As I get going here, just a couple of general observations. So first of all, I do want to mention it's great to be here for informational purposes. This isn't just an explicit endorsement from the Park Service of Amtrak Vacations. This is something I do for lots of tour operators and travel companies. But with that said, it is great to be here for informational purposes. There's something fun talking about trains and national parks. I think a lot of people, if you know some of the history of national parks, there's a really close association between trains and parks. I mean, in the early days of the establishment of national parks and the national park system, those early railroad companies played a really big role in advocating for the creation of national parks. There's some fascinating history there. If you're inclined, you can look up some of that and some great books and reporting on that. And then, of course, trains were a key part of how people got to and experienced the parks. So it's really cool that these days you can still have that kind of travel experience. I also want to say, for virtually every national park, there are a couple of great tips to keep in mind while you're thinking about your trip there. I think a little research ahead of time is always useful. These are big places. Buying the guidebook, I won't recommend a specific guidebook, The Lonely Planet, The Rough Guide, The Folders, whatever it is. Buying the guidebook, doing a little research ahead of time, to have a sense of what you want to see most, some prioritization, some planning, that can really come in handy. Also, following national parks on social media, I'm going to recommend that one too. We've got great staff and rangers who are very active on Facebook and Instagram and other places. It's really fun to actually follow those accounts and get a sense of what's going on at the park these days, what are the happenings, what's the new news, where are wildlife sightings taking place. So that's another one. And then finally, one to keep in mind, wherever park you're visiting, getting up and getting an early start to the day is always a good tip. these are definitely popular places. I like getting out there nice and early in the day, having these places, some of these hikes and overlooks and other things, a little less crowded. Wildlife is more active around sunrise. So that tip, I think, can be useful too for all the parks. So general advice there, diving right into Glacier National Park. This is truly a special place and one of my favorite parks in the system because, as you can tell from some of these photos, Glacier is a wild place. This is the northern Rocky Mountains, the northern U.S. Rocky Mountains, and this is a very high elevation park. Much of the year, this entire place is covered in snow. The Going to the Sun Road, which is the main road that traverses the entire park, often isn't cleared of snow well into the summer. I mean, I'm talking July, and really July, August, and then a little into September, and then the winter snows might be starting. So this place is truly wild, but it's also developed. It does have one road that traverses the entire park. It has several other entrances into the park that are one way in, one way out, several lodges, visitor centers, visitor services, and gateway communities outside of the park. You have a lot of developed trails, so a great trail system, backcountry trails as well. So I think what's really great about Glacier is this mix of accessibility and wildness. So you will feel very connected, very into the wild in your experience in Glacier National Park, but maybe do it from the comfort of a tour bus or a tour vehicle. I'll show you a photo here, a second, of the red bus tours that are so famous in Glacier National Park. So it's a great blend of the wild and the accessible. That's what I love about Glacier. Oh, right here. So this is one of the best ways to experience the park. In fact, Glacier Park Red Bus Tours. This is a fleet of historic tour vehicles operated by the concessionaire in the park, Xanterra. And the great thing about touring the park through these vehicles, they leave and depart from both the east and the west side of the park. So no matter where you're staying, you can be in the park. There is in-park lodging. There is, of course, lodging in the gateway communities on the east side and the west side. It's pretty likely that the Red Bus Tours stop and pick up either where you're staying or nearby. So it's very easy to arrange a tour in these small historic red buses. These are usually round trip tours, varying in length from 2 or 3 to even 8 hours. So a great way to see the park and let someone else do the driving, and you just enjoy the views, just enjoy the incredible wildness that is Glacier National Park. So again, I mentioned high elevation, and boy, that is true. I mean, you're going to feel like you're in the Alps, you're in the Himalayas. This is, our high elevation Rocky Mountains here in North America, in the U.S., 175 mountains in Glacier National Park, Mount Cleveland, 10,000, almost 10,500 feet, truly high elevation. Epic scenery, massive, huge blue skies, really just breathtaking. And of course, the glaciers themselves. So the park home to 26 glaciers now, the largest Harrison Glacier. And I want to mention explicitly, you can see some of these glaciers without going that far from the road. In fact, going to the Sun Road, I think we have here, there is a view spot for Jackson Glacier on Going to the Sun Road. So now with some hiking, of course, you can get to viewpoints for other glaciers as well. But even right there, right off Going to the Sun Road, there's a view spot where you can catch a glimpse of one of those glaciers in the park. So, a rare glacier in the lower 48, highly recommended. I'm going to go back a slide here to call out a recommendation I have. I mentioned Going to the Sun Road a couple times already. That is the road that traverses the park. If you're at the park, you're going to do it. It's an absolute highlight. It's one of the most stunning scenic drives in the entire United States. I have no doubt that you're going to do it. I highly recommend it. Early in the day, again, a little less crowded. I recommend early in the day. But I'm going to recommend these other areas of the park where it's kind of a one-way in, one-way out. The Two Medicine Valley area is one of them. It's on the east side is where your entrance is. South, from where Going to the Sun Road lets out of the park. And then north, from where Going to the Sun Road lets out of the park, is another area called the Many Glacier area. So I'm recommending these two areas of the park because they're popular, they can be busy, but they're a little less crowded. A lot of the visitation concentration moved to the Going to the Sun Road once it was completed because people really love traversing the park, obviously. Well, both the Many Glacier and the Two Medicine Valley area, scenic, incredibly scenic. I mean, absolutely breathtaking. Lakes, Swift Current Lake. You have Two Medicine Lake, both with boating and paddling opportunities on these lakes. So a wonderful way to kind of experience that wilderness, get out in it. and do something on the water and experience the sights of these amazing mountains surrounding you in both areas of the park. And I'll mention explicitly in the Many Glacier Area Park, there is a lodge there, a very popular lodge. So you've got great visitor services, restaurants, other amenities and needs right next to Swift Current Lake with amazing views and even more hiking trails. So that's a great, again, that blend of visitor services, accessibility, and then bam, you're right there in the wilderness and in the wild. So I love Glacier because of that really convenient juxtaposition. You may even see wildlife like tourists and sightseers like these. You might recognize someone there in the middle. Glacier Park Lodge, we mentioned there. The great thing about where the train drops off is in East Glacier, right there next to the lodge. It's incredibly convenient. It couldn't get more convenient because, again, you can sign up for some of that sightseeing in the Red Bus tours right there as well. So a great mix of accessibility and wildness and wilderness. Really amazing, once in a lifetime trip.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donnie. And folks, it's funny, as I'm listening to Donnie, and I hope you feel the same way, this is one of so many great reasons whenever you travel to any of these national parks, being able to have that tour guide perspective, and obviously, as Donnie's mentioned, has been a tour guide for many years as well, but having that knowledge, it really is second to none. And Donnie, I have to say, even I've learned a thing or two already just listening to you just on Glacier National Park. So, and you will have that opportunity not only to have a local tour guide with you, as an example, when we do a full day guided tour on one of the days in Glacier National Park, but also have a chance to meet some of the local park rangers as well. All right. Yeah, you saw the picture Donnie showed with the red Jammer bus, that little unique automobile. The driver, he or she is also your tour guide for the full day. So a way to wrap it up and really kind of put it together. Here's an example of one of the trips that's trending really well, very popular for us. For those of you that may have Glacier National Park on your wish list, this one happens to be round trip from Chicago. Now, some of you might be wondering, who's viewing today's pre-recorded on-demand webinar, well, I'm based in the East Coast, or I'm in the West Coast or the South. How do I get to and from there? Well, here's the good thing, folks. You can start right at your local Amtrak train station. So again, if you don't like to fly or you don't feel like driving, any of our reservation agents or your local travel agent can help make arrangements to bring you to and from Glacier National Park right where you're located, or they can help you with flights and be able to book flights for you round trip in and out of Chicago, where then you can experience this wonderful trip. One thing I'll mention on this particular trip before we move on to our next national park, the red lines that you see, folks, those are the trains. And again, it's the Empire Builder, but the number one in a red triangle, that means it's an overnight on board the train. So as you can see, it's an overnight going out to Glacier National Park, and then it's an overnight coming back from Glacier National Park. And we're going to talk a little bit later in today's presentation on the different seating and sleeping accommodations. And you saw a little bit of that earlier with the nice video before leading into Glacier National Park. So we'll talk a little bit more. And by the way, Donnie, to your point about being in a great location when it comes to traveling into Glacier National Park by train, don't ask me, Donnie, how I know this. Well, I do know because I counted it. It's about 209 steps away, folks, from the Amtrak train station to the front doorstep of Glacier Park Lodge. All right. Yes, I did count it because I couldn't get over how close it was right from the train station. And Donnie, I know you and I have probably heard this term many times over the years, and it's not even necessarily travel as it relates to real estate. Location, location, location. Well, it even applies here between the train station and Glacier National Park. So keep Glacier National Park in mind. And by the way, folks, if this is on your wish list or bucket list, it only operates in the months of June, July, August, and September with Amtrak vacations. So it's only open 4 months of the year. So if you're thinking about going this year, definitely give us a call. Or if you want to plan even ahead of time for the summer or fall of 2026, we have you covered as well. All right, let's move on to the next iconic region of the United States, but also train, which is the Southwest Chief. All right, this is also another one of our long distance superliner trains. All right, our overnight trains. And if you ever hear the term superliner trains, folks, just know that's all the trains in the Western United States, pretty much from Chicago heading west, or from west out to Chicago, and that includes the Southwest Chief. And what does that mean when we say the word superliner? It basically means these trains are double-decker trains. These are the largest in our fleet of trains in the United States. But this is the train, folks, that can either start or end in the great city of Chicago. It goes through Kansas City, Albuquerque, Flagstaff, as well as Los Angeles. And where does this train bring each of you and your friends and family? Well, let's take a little short video and you'll see which national park that I'm talking about right now. Enjoy, everybody. Fantastic. And folks, who better to talk about the Grand Canyon than Donnie again, considered one of the 7 wonders of the world. So with that, back to you, Donnie.
Absolutely. That's great. What a great video. I love that. It takes me right back there. I'm lucky enough to have been to the Grand Canyon a couple times myself, led tours there a few times as well. And, while we're on this slide right here, I'm going to call attention to the lower left-hand corner. You might see a little gray kind of square on the left bottom of that sign. That's a World Heritage icon. So this recognizes that Grand Canyon is a World Heritage site. We have a couple dozen designated World Heritage sites in the United States, which just means that this place is recognized truly as a worldwide, a global icon, recognized by the Natural and Heritage, sites community as being so incredibly unique, worthy of that World Heritage title. So what can I say about the Grand Canyon? The superlatives, you run out of them quickly. It's far more than just a big hole in the ground, which is how you can't help but laugh. You see some less than glowing reviews, which is insane. A hole in the ground. I think it's a lot more going on here than that. This place is truly astonishing, awestruck. You run out of words to describe this landscape carved by the Colorado River over millions and millions of years. And again, juxtaposed to that incredible wild landscape, unlike anything you've ever seen before, accessibility. There is a wonderful array of visitor services and accommodation along the south rim of the Grand Canyon here in the Grand Canyon Historic Village. Multiple lodging options, food and beverage, retail. But on top of that, museums, visitor centers, artists' cottages, all sorts of things and services and experiences that bring the Grand Canyon to life for you, that give you insight into the way not just it was shaped geologically over time, but the way that people have related to the Grand Canyon, not least the indigenous communities that have lived and been a part of this landscape for millennia. So very accessible, a lot to see and do along the Grand Canyon. I'm going to call out on this map before I go to the next picture, the Rim Trail. There is, in fact, a trail that runs 12 miles along the South Rim. What's great about that is that it allows visitors to the South Rim to kind of spread out. if you just put in a little time and take a leisurely walk along the South Rim, you'll leave a little bit of the crowds behind, multiple viewing points along that South Rim, different perspectives into the canyon that you'll get as it winds along the rim. Very accessible, wonderful trail along the South Rim there. And these are just photos taken along. Again, you get different perspectives from different areas of the park. And I mean, look at that landscape, truly astonishing. And I love how, particularly in the top right here, that captures the colors that you can experience in the Grand Canyon. Seeing sunrise along the rim, seeing the sun as it moves into the sky, the colors change, the light playing off the rocks, the sunset, again, kind of a different experience depending on the cloud cover or lack of cloud cover, the weather, all of those elements come together to provide a different experience of the canyon in the day, in the night, the segue from day to night and night to day. Highly recommend checking out and being at a great view spot on the rim at either sunrise or sunset. And for example, Mather Point. I mean, this is one of the iconic viewing sites of the South Rim. You've no doubt seen photos here. This is one of the most popular areas of the park because it gives you such an outstanding view of this incredible landscape. But there are tours available that can take you to different areas of the park as well. I want to recommend that. And I'll mention there is a shuttle. There is a shuttle service in Grand Canyon National Park moving along that South Rim. In fact, I'll recommend specifically to the west part of the South Rim. That's a road called Hermit's Road. During the peak season in the summer, there are no private vehicles allowed on that road. It's shuttle access only. There are multiple stops along Hermit's Road before it turns around and comes back. So that means you can get out along the way. It's probably going to be a little quieter, less of that vehicle traffic because it's the shuttles only. And so I recommend taking that Hermit's Rest route on Hermit's Road. It's about 80 minutes round trip. You can even just stay on the shuttle and enjoy the different views along that road. Just one of the ways we manage the park to try to, quiet some of the vehicular traffic and let people experience some of the natural soundscape of Grand Canyon National Park. More of those scenic views, you can't get away from them. No matter where you are in Grand Canyon National Park, this tremendous landscape, it just is breathtaking. Truly something you have to experience at least once in your life. And you may, again, come across some familiar looking tourists who are soaking in those views themselves. Jim, I hope you had the sunscreen on here. I hope you
yes. I should have worn a hat that day, but yes, I did.
Very important, very important.
Yes.
Multiple lodges on the South Rim, this beautiful El Tovar right on the rim. And so some of the rooms, if you're facing out to the rim, have those incredible views, right from your room, along with great dining and that classic parkitecture, we call it, using the look and feel of the park, that parkitecture look and feel. So there's your Grand Canyon, trip of a lifetime. You've got to do it at least once.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Donnie. And by the way, folks, I'll mention, unlike Glacier National Park, which again is only open June, July, August, and September, as far as the dates that we run different types of trips and excursions and tours that you can take advantage of. The Grand Canyon, on the flip side, you can go anytime you want, anytime from January through December, not only this year, but even into next year as well. So if you're like myself and maybe even Donnie a little bit, that are located in regions that can be a little bit cooler or snowier or rainier during certain times of the year, you may want to head out west and enjoy that beautiful sightseeing and sun, or even the summertime if you looking to travel with your children or grandchildren. So here's a trip that's trending really well for us with Amtrak Vacations, known as our Rails to the Grand Canyon. And unlike Glacier National Park, which you saw previous, that happened to be round trip from Chicago, this one is round trip from Los Angeles. But again, just a reminder, any trip can start or end wherever you would like it to. Or you can go one way by train and then fly home. Or you could fly to a destination, do the train trip, and then head home, however you prefer. But here's a great package, 2 nights in Grand Canyon. And one thing I'll mention too, and Donnie, thank you for showing El Tovar Lodge. Again, that's one of many different lodges that you can stay at with your friends and family. El Tovar, Yavapai, Maswick Lodge, Bright Angel, I could go on and on. But also, if you want to spend 3 nights or you want to spend 4 nights, this one happens to be 2 nights. You'll see a little round black circle with the number 2, but any trips can be customized. And that's another great benefit with Amtrak Vacations. And I know in 11 years that I've been here, I will tell you firsthand, I've done many trips, mostly on a yearly basis, if not every other year with my own family. And we've always had some element of personalization and customization, adding a day, taking out a day, adding additional sightseeing tour, additional city. You and your friends and family can do the same. And that includes the Grand Canyon. And it also includes the different hotels and lodges. So again, huge range of lodges that you could choose from, not only in Grand Canyon, but Glacier and some of these other fantastic national parks that Donnie and I are going to talk about, which leads me to the next exciting destination region in the Western United States, featuring the train known as the California Zephyr. This is one of the most popular trains in all of the United States, besides, of course, Empire Builder and the Southwest Chief. The California Zephyr, again, another superliner train, double-decker. But this train, folks, you can either start or end in the great city of Chicago. It goes through Omaha, Denver, Salt Lake City, Emeryville, which is located right outside of San Francisco, and really just an amazing train. And again, we'll talk more about the different seating and sleeping accommodations that you could choose from, certainly for any of you that are overnighting on any of these trains a little bit later in today's presentation. But with that in mind, I'm going to turn it right back over to you, Donnie, to talk more about not only Yellowstone, but also Yosemite National Park as well. So back to you, Donnie.
Yeah, absolutely. The two big Ys, the Y parks, certainly. Yes. Some of the most famous, some of the most incredible. Of course, Yellowstone, the first national park, established in 1872, the first national park in the world. I mean, this was the one that started it all. So remarkable history here. Yellowstone, a place I've had the chance to go a couple of times myself. We could give a whole presentation just on Yellowstone. This is a large park with a lot to see and do. 3,500 square miles. That's like 2.25 Rhode Islands, I think. I mean, this is a massive place, most well known for its geothermal features. You know, this is a park that is on top of a volcanic hotspot. And so you have the geysers, the hot pots, the springs, the hot water, the prismatic waters that Yellowstone is known for. But there are some other features as well that I'm going to talk about a little bit here too. I just want to look at this map here for a second with you. Like I said earlier, in preparation for visiting national parks, grab yourself a guidebook, do a little research, get familiar with the landscape, because again, this is a big place. Yellowstone is a big place, a lot to see and do. If you're only here for a day or two, you know, identify what's important to you. Are you there for wildlife viewing? It may be the Hayden Valley and the Lamar Valley. You want to concentrate your time there. That's kind of in the northeast of the park. If you're there for geysers, Yellowstone, Old Faithful and the Geyser Basin here in the west and kind of central parts of the park as well. Mammoth Hot Spring has some other kind of hot water and geyser-like and hot spring features here in the northwest of the park. I'm somewhat partial to Yellowstone Lake. You know, here you can see it here. The headwaters of the Yellowstone Lake are kind of southeast of the park in the mountains here. And this is the headwaters of the Yellowstone River that eventually flows into the Missouri. Yellowstone Lake here, as the waters leave Yellowstone Lake, go to this area called Canyon. This is where something called the Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, is located. Two remarkable waterfalls that you can have easy access here to, with great viewpoints, great trails that are along the Yellowstone River. I enjoy this part of the park, a little quieter, not quite as crowded as Old Faithful and some of those other areas. I love that kind of mountain and water kind of landscape as well. So get to know the park. Think about what parts of the park you want to spend time in. If Old Faithful is your priority, definitely, like I said earlier, you know, up and earlier in the morning is your friend. But it is an amazing site. So Old Faithful here erupts about every 90 minutes these days. And in the area, there are other geysers in the area as well. So it's easy to see Old Faithful, easy to walk and see some of the other smaller glaciers that are in that geysers that are in that geyser base. Glaciers and geysers, we're covering them all today. Some other geysers that are in the area. So Old Faithful, again, a must see for sure. I'm partial to Grand Prismatic Spring. I think this is one of the most stunning thermal features in the park in the United States, possibly in the world. This is the largest hot spring in the United States. These colors are caused by mats of bacteria, microbial mats of bacteria along the edges of the pool. And there's different depths to the water, different temperature gradations to the water that determine the colors that are on display here. This photo is taken from a viewpoint that is behind the spring, very accessible. So you've got both the platform, the boardwalk leading you very close to Grand Prismatic there, and then also this viewpoint with the platform behind it. I love this. This is something I go and make sure to visit every time that I'm in the park. I mentioned earlier the wildlife, herds of bison, you have antelope, you have deer, you have coyotes for sure. And if you're lucky, you might see moose and wolves. Now, if you're into the wolves, I would check with the lodging there. There are tours and tour operators and rangers that specialize in wolf sighting and kind of know where the packs are, know what their behavior is, know what times of day you might be more able to see them than others. So I would do some inquiry there if you're interested in that in particular. But even just driving through the Lamar Valley and the Hayden Valley areas, you're going to see bison, guaranteed. You'll see bison. And if you're early in the day or maybe even late, you might see moose as well. I've had good luck seeing moose there as they concentrate along the rivers foraging. Lots of lodging within the park. So Lake Yellowstone Hotel, I've stayed here a time or two. You're very comfortable, great visitor services, wildlife viewing in the day, come back and have a wonderful lunch, and then have a more leisurely afternoon perhaps. It's a great way to approach the day. So Yellowstone, I mean, we could go on, but you've got to see it. I'm just going to give a little twist on the recommendation too. If you've seen it in the summer, you haven't seen it in the winter. It's the kind of park that is amazing in both seasons and is accessible in the winter as well. The northwest entrance to the park, there is even some lodging in the northwest area that is available. So highly recommend then too. All right, we're going to pivot to the other big why, which is Yosemite. The heart of Yosemite, Yosemite Valley and the Mariposa Grove, actually protected in the 1860s. Before Yellowstone was established. They were protected not as a national park, but they were protected as kind of a state reserve for the state of California. So the history goes back even further. So Yosemite, one of the great granddaddies of the national park system. We put this slide here because I wanted to remind myself to recommend to you right away that there is a shuttle system within Yosemite Valley. And I want to highly recommend it because 95% of visitation to Yosemite National Park visits the valley. And that's understandable because we'll show you in the photos here in a second or two how spectacular it is. But it is a popular place. Every time I go, I recommend find parking, fairly early, right when you get there. Use that shuttle system for the rest of the day. You can see the purple shuttle line runs in the heart of the valley. The green goes even further back out of the valley. So shuttle system, look into it. It's free, very, very useful and convenient for getting around the park. But this is one of the views as you're heading into Yosemite Valley. This is the main road that leads to the valley. This is a viewpoint called Tunnel View. And it's called that because you've just come out of a tunnel that was carved through a mountain. You come out and you're confronted with this view, and it is just spectacular. And everyone will pull over. There's a huge parking lot. Everyone will pull over and check out, looking down into Yosemite Valley from Tunnel View. And you can see Half Dome in the distance and El Capitan closer to you from Tunnel View here. So this is the incredible valley carved by glaciers and carved by water and of course wind over time. So Yosemite, again, this is another all-season park. There is less access in the winter. There is one road that goes over the entire park, El Tioga Pass. That's open in the summer during the main season only. But this is another park that's open all year round and has some wonderful winter activities available as well. So Jim, I'm going to pause before we go to Utah. Do you want to jump in with anything on our big Y parks?
Well, I will say I love the Y analogy. Yellowstone, Yosemite, or the G's, right? Guys are a glacier. Folks, we have different, these letters can mean a lot. But, one thing I'm thinking about too, and as it relates to not only Yosemite and Yellowstone, and you'll see this in a little bit, folks, if one national park is on your wish list, Amtrak Vacations has you covered. If you want to visit multiple national parks in one trip, we also have packages that allow you to do that. And I think the next national parks, which is kind of the extra little surprise of today's presentation, I think you'll see all the different national parks in one trip that you can visit. So, Donnie, I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, so here just to close up on our look at some specific parks, I'm going to do a quick hit on the national parks of Utah. You may have heard these referred to as the Mighty Five, big promotional campaign that's been very visible lately. So 5 national parks: Capitol Reef, Canyonlands, Zion, Bryce Canyon, and Arches. And I love here on the slide and on the following slide how we pulled together photos from each of them, because there are some similarities and some differences. So these are all parks carved by time, by erosion, by wind, by water, by the Virgin River, the Green River. Red rocks, these high plateau red rocks of Utah, carved over millions of years into incredible shapes. And I'm no geologist, but fins and arches and buttes and canyons and amphitheaters, these incredible features, with each park having a little bit of a different twist, a little bit of a different view, a little bit of a different landscape. Zion, it's in the top right, has these lush amphitheaters where the vegetation, is kind of coating, the valley and the lower slopes of those red rocks. Of course, Arches National Park in the lower and the middle, the iconic delicate arch. You've seen it on the license plate for Utah. You've got Canyonlands. You've got the double arches here. That lower left is also in Arches National Park. You've got these hoodoos. You've got these fins and features. Incredible hiking is available in all of these parks. Incredible overlooks and views are available in all of these parks. And just like with the Grand Canyon, the number one tip with all of the national parks in Utah is sunset and sunrise. You'll see some of these places really attracting, the photographers especially, at sunrise and at sunset, because as the sun rises, as it's falling, and that sunlight plays upon the rocks and reveals different shades, different colorations, different shadows, depending on the cloud cover. It's kind of dappling against the red rocks, very evocative in its reds and its oranges and its ochres and its browns. I mean, it truly is captivating. So, I recommend them all. They've each got their own kind of twist on what kind of geologic landscape you're going to encounter. All very, very worthwhile. They all offer some hiking opportunities, both very easy strolls that get you in among these features, and some more robust, half-day or full-day hikes even, that can really get you out into some really cool wilderness areas with, again, just access to some amazing geologic features. So they all come recommended. You could spend a month in Utah enjoying these amazing places shaped by millions of years.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Donnie. And by the way, I got another term: sunset and sunrises. So you can see all the letters. They're all tag teaming each other. So again, as I mentioned earlier, folks, if you have on your wish list, your bucket list, maybe you have a special birthday or anniversary coming up, which I will say is one of the top reasons so many folks like yourselves and your friends and family travel with Amtrak Vacations. You want to see as many in one trip? Well, here's a package to consider. Our Grand National Parks Discovery on the California Zephyr. Not only does it include the Mighty Five, and thank you so much, Donnie, for giving a nice overview on that, but it does include Yellowstone. It does include Yosemite. And what you'll notice is it starts in one great city and ends in another. So not every trip has to be round trip. Again, you can start in one city and end in another, but a fantastic package, 13 days, 12 nights. Let's talk about the train before we wrap up today's pre-recorded on-demand webinar. And again, want to thank Donnie, and I'm going to turn it to Donnie at the end for some final words. But the train itself, folks, certainly if you've ever been on Amtrak Vacations or if it's on your wish list or bucket list, the journey is truly part of the experience. You heard how I mentioned earlier, the clouds look the same anywhere we fly, not when you're traveling by train. And guess what? You don't have to deal with traffic if you're driving as well. I often think about my own family and I. As I mentioned, I've been on board 11 years. And when I look at this collage, what stands out to me is the picture right there in the middle at the top. I remember we were traveling on the train heading down to Florida. It's called the Auto Train. Some of you may have heard of the train. It's the one and only train in the United States. You can actually bring your own car, your own truck, your own motorcycle. And a few years ago, my family and I headed down to Florida. It was during our children's school break. And on the first night, or the night we were traveling down on board the train, my daughter said, "Dad, let's have a great game of Uno." And you know what we did? We went into the little lounge car, which is that picture right there in the middle. And I remember we were traveling through the Carolinas, down maybe even into Georgia at that point, and wireless was not available. And typically when we travel through major cities or some of the small to mid-sized cities, it is available and it's free of charge. But in this case, just like the national parks, it was not available because you're traveling through some of the countryside, the rural areas. But I remember sitting there having game after game, laughing. My wife and I, we got a couple adult beverages. The children got some snacks and juice. And we just had game after game of Uno. We met some of the other passengers that were also in the lounge car. And I remember it being so much fun. And there is something to be said about detaching from the digital world, which I will say is probably the best thing you ever want to do, in particular, traveling to the national parks. As I'm sure Donnie can attest to, you want to give 110% attention as much as you can to just let these sights soak in, whether it's sunrise, sunset, or any time during the day. And the same applies even when you're traveling on board the train, to just sit back, relax, and enjoy each other's company and enjoy the scenery along the way. Now, when you do travel overnight on board the trains, folks, we have different types of seating and sleeping accommodations, from roomettes to bedrooms. So what I thought I'd do is I give you a nice little overview, a quick little video before I touch on the different categories. So I hope you enjoy this little video on what it's like on board. Great. Folks, there's so many perks when you upgrade to a private room. Now, as you saw in the video, we have roomettes, we have bedrooms, we also have handicap accessible rooms as well. So what are the perks of upgrading to a private room? Well, if you look from left to right, number one, when you upgrade to a private room, a private sleeper, all your meals are included. So from the time you board the train to the time you get off the train, while you are in a private room, you have all your meals included, whatever meals are offered during that time. You also have lounge access. You have a first class attendant that's there to help with any turn down service, any questions that you may have. And when you go through the lounges, you're able to access the different lounges. You also can order off the menu as well, any meals you would like off the menu. And your attendant can also take reservations as to what time you'd like to have dinner in the evening. And many times there's usually an early and late seating. And depending on how busy and booked the train is, there might even be 3 different times: early, mid-time, and late seating. Also, if any of you have any special dietary requests, just let us or let your local travel advisor know, and we'll make those arrangements for you. Something else I'll mention too, not only do you have a chance to dine inside of the dining cars, their tables are for you get a chance to meet other individuals also traveling. But if you prefer to order what you would like off the menu right from your room attendant, we also have what we call flexible dining. That's what you see right there in the bottom, where meals can be delivered right to your own private room as well. And then the last part is there are cafe cars that are open periodically throughout some of the train journeys. Now, I know I keep comparing plane versus train, but I have to just mention this again. And I want to just take you through, again, so many of the great highlights when you travel by train, especially out to some of these magnificent national parks that Donnie was highlighting and featuring today. Again, number one in the top right-hand corner, freedom to stretch and move around. The views, right? The views alone. Also, here's a big highlight. You don't have to arrive at the airport 2 to 3 hours before the train departs. You can actually arrive as close in as 30 minutes before departure. Now, I personally always recommend at least 45 minutes to an hour, but even if you arrive 1 hour before, you're still saving 2 hours than what you'd have to arrive if you were flying. Also, no baggage restrictions. Again, you can bring up to 2 pieces of luggage, 2 carry-on bags, okay, for free. Hassle-free check-in. We make it nice, easy, and smooth. And the last point I think is a great highlight, and that is arrive in city center. Now, today, obviously, we're talking about some of these iconic trains, right? And some of the national parks, we're talking about the national parks, but some of the iconic trains that travel there will bring you right up and close to some of these iconic national parks, such as Glacier National Park, or in the case of the Grand Canyon, where we partner with the Grand Canyon Railway that brings you right into the south rim of the Grand Canyon. But in other national parks, we provide motor coach transportation to bring you into the national parks. But if you were traveling to any of the great cities in the United States, and I'm going to use New York City as an example, if you were flying into JFK Airport, if you were flying into LaGuardia Airport, if you were flying into Newark Airport, many of us, myself included, we would have to wait sometimes an hour to 2 hours because we could be stuck in traffic. So many of the train stations in the United States, and again, remember, there's over 500 of them. So many of them, folks, are literally in the heart of the city. So you can literally get out of the train and walk many times to your hotel that you're staying at. And did you know you could choose between a 3, 4, or 5-star hotel or lodge in any of our packages anywhere we go in the United States? But I thought that was a good example. New York City, Moynihan Train Hall, Penn Station, you're literally within blocks of Broadway, within blocks of Times Square. So keep that in mind. So the question is, how soon can I book any of these exciting trips of a lifetime? Folks, if you've had any of these national parks that Donnie and I have hit on and touched on today, here's the best part. You can literally call today, reach out to us or your local travel advisor, and plan your trip to travel within the next 1 to 2 years, or literally within the next 1 to 2 weeks, 1 to 2 months. It's very, very flexible when it comes to any of the national parks with Amtrak Vacation. So before we wrap it up and I turn it back to Donnie for some final words, why Amtrak Vacations, folks? Well, as you can see, starting left to right, the choice is yours. We're truly a one-stop shop. We can pretty much book everything for you except for flights, and that's another reason why to always consider booking through your local travel advisor. Remember, any trips can be customized. As I mentioned, you can travel and book your trip to travel up to 2 years in advance, or literally within 2 weeks, 2 months, up to 1 to 2 years in advance. Also, train travel experts, whether you're booking through your local travel advisor or giving us a call, these are folks who know the best rail, the routes, the different areas, of course, the national parks. Hotel selection, again, you choose between 3, 4, 5-star. As you can see today, we have an extensive vacation collection, in particular to the national parks. So if it's one national park that you want to visit, or if it's multiple, we got you covered. And you can start and or end at any Amtrak Vacation train station. So, folks, any questions that you may have, or to plan your exciting trip of a lifetime to the national parks, you can give us a call. We're open 7 days a week. You can also visit us online, or again, what I mentioned, contact your local travel advisor, who are experts, and they can also book flights for you, either one way or round trip. So with that in mind, folks, it gives me great pleasure to pass it one last time over to our guest speaker. And I know, as you can tell, folks, I'm a huge fan of Donnie. And just, Donnie, you being here truly for informational purposes is exactly why I think it makes it so special, even for myself, having traveled over the years, meeting folks like yourself who understand, know the parks and know the different areas and places to go and things to do. So I can't thank you enough on behalf of Amtrak Vacations for joining us here today, just to share all this helpful information for all our viewers today joining us. So with that in mind, Donnie, I'm going to turn it over to you for some last words that you'd like to share.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I appreciate that. Happy to be here. You know, I really appreciate the role that travel companies, tour companies, packagers, facilitators, train companies, the role that they play in facilitating great experiences in our national parks. And so I really believe in, coming to where providing this kind of information is useful and where it can be amplified and where it can get in front of people to help them connect with their national parks. I mean, these are our national parks together. These are the nation's, the people's national parks. They belong to everybody. So great to be here. I think I'll just observe that next year, 2026, is our semi-quincentennial. It is our 250th birthday as a nation. I mean, that's remarkable, right? We made it 250 years. This is a time for reflection and contemplation and discussion about America and what it is and what it means to everybody as a nation. And national parks have played a role in the definition and the conception of this nation. Their establishment was part of kind of nation building. This idea that we had these places that are woven into some of the fabric and meaning of America as a democracy and as a nation. So it's a very opportune, a very appropriate time to be thinking about visiting national parks as we move into that commemoration of the establishment of our country. So great to be here at this opportune moment to talk about them, share some observations, from my experiences. And I just hope people get out there and have a wonderful time. Thanks for having me, Jim.
Thank you so much, Donnie. And folks, I couldn't have said it any better myself. Thank you so much again, Donnie, on behalf of Amtrak Vacations and all of our viewers joining us. And folks, we look forward to having you, your friends and family on board soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.